friends, good evening. I welcome you all to another edition of Daily News Analysis. So in this particular edition, we are going to discuss some very important articles. The first one being India-Japan relations. In the wake of recent Prime Minister's visit to Japan, this particular analysis is important from the perspective of GS2 international relations. Another important article is about sectors worst hit by US tariffs. That particular analysis is again vital from the perspective of GS3 economy. Another important and very interesting analysis is about Samudrayaan Mission. What exactly is this particular mission? What is its important in the wake of the developments in science and technology, particularly vital from the perspective of GS3 science and technology along with economy part as well. Another very vital and interesting article is about Florida's python problem. So what exactly Florida's Everglades problems when it comes to these Burmese pythons and how they become invasive in that particular ecosystem. Important analysis again from the perspective of GS3 environment. In the decoded section, we are going to discuss some very interesting article about warning from hills. So this particular analysis is about flash floods, the recent flash floods in particular in Jammu and Kashmir, and how we can manage particularly this particular aspect of the disasters. Important analysis from the perspective of again GS3 disaster management. So stay tuned. The first important article that we are going to discuss is about India-Japan relations. In the backdrop of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Japan, he left for Japan Thursday night itself for the 15th India-Japan annual summit with his Japanese counterpart Shigeru Ishiba. So this particular analysis in the Indian Express is important, very vital from the perspective of GS2 international relations. India-Japan relation and its historic trajectory, very vital from the perspective of again mains particularly, but you may get a question in prelims from the mapping perspective as well. So do take a look at Japan's map carefully in this regard. About the news, the August 29-30 visit will be Modi's 8th trip to Japan and his first since the new Prime Minister took office last year. The two leaders have met earlier on the sidelines of ASEAN and G7 summit as well. Modi last travelled to Japan for the annual summit in 2018. He has since visited the country for multilateral engagements such as G20 summit in Osaka in 2019 and the G7 summit in Hiroshima in 2023 as well. So both these points highlight the importance of India-Japan strategic partnership. From Japan, the Prime Minister will essentially travel to the China particularly to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, which is hosted obviously by Xi Jinping of China. So you can see the growing alignments between the traditionally, rival countries in action here. And it also shows India's strategic autonomy in action. So essentially, in the wake of Trump's punishing tariffs on India, this particular summit in China is also very vital. So we will be going to take a look at the outcomes of the summit. What are the implicit, implications of that particular summit in the upcoming times whenever that summit, concludes. But before that time, currently Indian Prime Minister is traveling to Japan. So this particular analysis is vital. India-Japan relationship trajectory, as I earlier said, is glorious story of friendship over the past 2 decades. So in 2007 particularly, Japanese PM Shinzo Abe delivers the landmark Confluence of the Two Seas speech in Parliament. So from that point onwards, we can see the convergence between the ideals, between the objectives of the two countries. So Shinzo Abe is considered as the pioneer in this regard. In 2013, Emperor Akihito and Empress Michiko visited India. That is also turned out to be a very important visit. In 2014, again, Abe is a Republic Day chief guest. This particular fact elevated the partnership to special strategic and global partnership. In 2019, President at that point of time, R.N. Kovind, attended Emperor Naruhito's coronation as well. In 2022, you can see the Kishida visits India, pledging almost 5 trillion yen in investment, particularly in India. 2023, Modi attended G7 summit in Hiroshima, unveiling Gandhi statue near Peace Park as well. In 24, Modi again meet Japanese PM thrice, marking 10 years of special strategic partnership. So in 2024 also, Prime Minister Modi visited Japanese Prime Ministers at that point of time 3 times to mark the 10 years of strategic partnership between the two countries. So elevating the partnership, the bilateral partnership has been progressively upgraded, moving from global partnership in 2002 to a strategic and global partnership in 2006, and finally to a special and strategic global partnership in 2014. So essentially in 2014, you can see the special and strategic global partnership between the two countries. Strategic convergence, the partnership is built on shared values and a similar strategic outlook. India's Act East policy and Indo-Pacific Oceans initiatives align perfectly closely with Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific policy as well. So there is very strategic alignment when it comes to Indian Ocean region in this regard. Economic and developmental ties have also flourished. Japan is India's largest overseas development assistance donor and leads the connectivity pillar of IPOI. So you can see the growing importance of Japan for India's development perspective and aspirations as well. It is one of the largest, or rather India's largest overseas development assistance donor. Multilateral cooperations are also important here. The two countries collaborate on various plurilateral platforms, including the Quad, International Solar Alliance, Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure, and Supply Chain Resilience Initiative as well. So you can see the plurilateral arrangements and India-Japan relationships in these Quad, International Solar Alliance, CDRI in particular, Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure, along with supply chain resilience initiatives. So all these initiatives are very, very important from the perspective of India's international relations. Upcoming discussions in this regard, the upcoming summit will address the key global issues such as tariffs imposed by the Trump administration and the uncertainties regarding US security commitments in the Indo-Pacific. So this particular aspect now is very, very vital, and that's why the Indian Prime Minister's visit will hold substance now. The cooperation in different areas is also very important to know here. So some granular points and some data points you must note down. So first and foremost is about defense and security. The key agreements on defense and security include the Joint Declaration on Security Cooperation, which is of 2008. Then there is a Defense Cooperation and Exchanges MOU in 2014. Then after that you have Information Protection Agreement in 2015. Reciprocal provision of supplies and services agreement in 2020, and co-development of unicorn naval mast in 2024. There are bilateral exercises or multilateral exercises involving India and Japan as well. Malabar is a famous one with US and Australian navies. Milan at multilateral level. GMEX is a bilateral maritime exercise between India and Japan. Dharma Guardian is an army exercise between India and Japan. And Coast Guard cooperation are held regularly as well. So these points here are important from the perspective of prelims. Note down the bilateral exercises in this regard. In 24-25 saw the participation of services chiefs in India and Japan, strengthening interoperability. So dialogue mechanisms in this regard are also important. There is a defense ministers meeting, chiefs visits, and joint service staff talks which were held in 2024. Which have consolidated trust between the two countries. India and Japan will move towards upgrading the 2008 Joint Declaration on Security Cooperation and will review progress in defense and technology transfers as well. So another important area where the cooperation is tremendous is development and infrastructure. So Japan has been India's largest ODA donor since 1958, supporting critical infrastructure and development projects to the tune of almost $4.5 billion in 23-24. So Japan is heavily investing in India's development sector. High-speed rail, obviously the most famous example of it is the Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train. The flagship train is a project symbolizing advanced technology transfer and skill development between the two countries. The late tranche of 300 billion yen, or rather $2.2 billion was signed in March 2023. The two sides are considering launching a mobility partnership in this regard, encompassing railways, roads, bridges across India. Modi and Ishiba are expected to travel to Sendai as well, a city known for semiconductor prowess in bullet trains. So, apart from its semiconductor prowess, what other thing Sendai is known for? Just comment your answer in the comment section. Very famous framework is there on this particular city's name. So, a very vital from the perspective of disaster management, that particular framework. I already gave you the answer. So, just comment it in the comment section. The third area of partnership between the two countries is about trade and investment. So, you can see the flourishing bilateral trade between the two countries. As of 23-24, trade reached $22.8 billion. As of April-January 24-25, trade stood at $21 billion, indicating stability. Trade imbalance is there. Japan obviously enjoys trade surplus with India. What are India's key exports, by the way? There is chemicals, vehicles, aluminium, seafood. Key imports from Japan: machinery, steel, copper, nuclear reactor parts. Investment trends: Japan is fifth largest FDI source for India. This particular fact is also very important. Cumulative investment of almost $43.2 billion as of December 24. Annual inflows of $3.1 billion as of 23-24. But in the time period between April to December, we have the annual inflows of almost $1.36 billion between the two countries through FDI as well. Japan views India as most promising long-term investment destination. So, that is Japanese view of Indian market. So, that's why Japan is investing tremendously, whether it comes to development or FDI in India particularly. The business presence of Indian or Japanese businesses is also tremendous. 1,400 Japanese companies operate in India with 5,000 establishments. 100 Indian companies are active and high probability on both sides are reported. Strategic sectors in this regard: digital cooperation, semiconductors, AI startups, clean energy, hydrogen, renewable, supply chain resilience, industrial competitiveness and skill development. New economic security initiatives initiated between the two Prime Ministers Modi and Ishiba focuses on semiconductors, critical minerals, AI, telecom, clean energy, the aim of which is to make economic and science and technology cooperation the backbone of bilateral ties. So, future commitments in this regard are also important to know. Investment target revision: original target of $5 trillion yens by 2026 achieved, likely upgraded to 7 to 10 trillion dollars, 10 trillion yens now. Digital partnership launch, and there is energy partnership between the two countries which is flourishing as well. Push for joint hydrogen and renewable energy projects is also there on the table between the two countries. Fourth important arena of cooperation is about multilateral and regional cooperation. Quad and other initiatives in this regard are important to know. India and Japan coordinates closely with US and Australia to ensure free, open, inclusive Indo-Pacific. The two sides will discuss the future of Quad in the view of Trump's recent decisions. The two countries are looking to diversify and secure supply chains through the supply chain resilience initiatives as well, which also involves Australia in its wake. So, this particular analysis is vital again from the perspective of GS2 international relations. You may get a mains question directly on India-Japan relations. So, note down some of the important data points and bilateral cooperations between the two countries. Apart from this particular article, important to know is some important terms in this regard. What exactly is Abenomics? So, many times you will see this particular term when it comes to Japanese PM Shinzo Abe. So, Abenomics refers to the set of economic policies introduced by obviously Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe starting in late 2012 to revitalize Japan's economy from decades of stagnation. So, that particular strategy or that particular policy was adopted by Japanese PM Shinzo Abe in late 2012. The policy named after Abe is built on 3 arrows. So, what are these 3 arrows, by the way? The first arrow is aggressive monetary easing, flexible fiscal stimulus and structural reforms. So, these are the 3 pillars or 3 arrows of Abenomics. These initiatives aim to combat deflation, increase economic growth and boost competitiveness through methods like increasing money supply, boosting government spending and promoting women's participation in the workforce. So, These are some of the aspects of abenomics. So note down some of these aspects. As I earlier said, from the perspective of prelims, the mapping of Japan is very, very, very vital. Japan has many active volcanoes. So I have particularly here, mentioned some of the active volcanoes in Japan. So important to know here some of the very vital mountain names which are active volcanically in Japan. So particularly Japan has many active volcanoes with some experience near constant activity. Sakurajima is one of the most active and with near daily eruptions. Mount Fuji is another one. Though currently quiet, it is also considered active and has a history of eruption. Other notable active volcanoes include Mount Aso, Mount Asama and Mount Shinmoikdek. So Japan's volcanic activity is linked to obviously its location on the Pacific Ring of Fire. Many of these volcanoes are popular tourist destinations as well, with hiking trails and hot springs around there. However, their proximity to populated areas also means they are closely monitored for any potential hazards as well. So I have particularly mentioned here volcanoes because many times volcanic eruptions are the themes for the UPSC, particularly in geography part. So that's why from the perspective of mapping, I have focused particularly on volcanoes in Japan. But apart from that, you do go through the micro mapping of Japan in this regard. Some important islands and surrounding seas are important here. So this is practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. Very vital, very important analysis from the perspective of GS2 international relations, India-Japan relations in particular. So another important article is about sectors worst hit by tariffs. So this particular analysis is again vital in the wake of Trump's punishing tariffs on India. Apart from earlier reciprocal tariff of 25%, Trump has imposed another 25% of punishing tariffs on India, particularly for buying the cheap Russian oil. So we are going to see what are the impact, because on 27th August those tariff rates came into effect when it comes to India. So the total tariff rate on India now is at 50%, which is one of the highest when it comes to trade with US. So essentially the 50% tariffs imposed by US on imports from India came into effect on August 27th, sending ripples through Indian economy and the government. That is true. We have seen the stock market crashing by 500 points as well recently. Several sectors, many of them labor intensive, have the US as a major export destination, and many are already seeing significant dip in demand. The government is cognizant of this and devising plan to support these sectors at least in the short term. So we are going to see what are the government steps, but in the meantime, the stalled trade talks between the two countries must restart. So for that, how do we know which sectors will be worst hit or worst affected by this tariff? By the way, the intensity of the impact of tariffs can be arrived at by looking at three metrics in combination. So article talks about three metrics here. The first one being the amount exported to the US in absolute terms. The second one being the share of US in that sector's total export to the world. And final is the final tariff that sector is facing. So these are the three criteria on which you can decide which are the worst affected sectors. If a sector exports a large amount to the US forms a major part of its total exports, obviously, and the tariffs are high, then the pain felt by that sector will be likely high as well. However, if the US forms a small share in that particular sector's total exports, then the impact is likely to be limited as well. So considering all these factors, these three key elements, what are the key sectors which are worst hit? So the first and foremost sector which is worst hit is shrimp sector. The $2.4 billion exported to the US. So there is substantial exposure of shrimp exports of India to the US market. 32.4% of total shrimp exports. Tariff increased to 60%. Prices have already dropped by 20% in Andhra Pradesh. So you can see the tremendous impact it will have on the shrimp farmers in particularly. Andhra Pradesh is essentially now seeing the worst effects as well. Jewelry, diamonds and golds particularly, $10 billion exported, almost 40% of sectors exports generally are accounted for by the US. Tariffs rose from 2.1% to 52.1%. Production cuts reported in Surat affecting almost 1.2 million workers. So, see, these are the sectors which are labor intensive sectors. So, in absolute terms, they may not be highest, yet the impact on the labor involved in these particular sectors is also very tremendous. Another labor intensive sector worst affected is textile and apparel at $10.8 billion total, with $5.4 billion for apparel exports to the US, and which is US market particularly accounts for 35% of share. Tariffs increased to 63.9%. So, manufacturing hubs like Tirupur, Noida, Ludhiana and Bengaluru are facing cancellations, downsizing and reduced shifts. So, we will see the layoffs in the textile and apparel sector as well, leading to unemployment in those sectors. Carpets, $1.2 billion exported to the US, which is almost accounting for 58.6% of total tariffs. Total tariff jumped from 2.9% to 52.9%. Other affected sectors like handicrafts, leather, footwear, furniture, agricultural goods like basmati rice, spices, tea, pulses and sesame seeds as well. So, you can one common observation between all these sectors is all these are very labor intensive sectors, and whenever we have also seen the amount of tariffs these sectors are facing, which are essentially punishing tariffs. So, apart from that, which are the sectors with more modest impact? Some Indian export sectors are expected to see more modest impact from the recent US tariff hike, though challenges in those sectors also remain. For example, there is organic chemical sector at $2.7 billion exported to the US, which accounts for 13.2% of total exports. Tariffs increased from 4 to 54%. Industry body Chemixil has sought government support for organic chemical sector. Metal, steel, aluminum and copper account for 17% of total exports to the US at $4.7 billion exported. While the US isn't the largest market for metals, SMEs in Delhi, NCR and Eastern India are vulnerable, especially in casting and semi-finished goods. Machinery and mechanical appliances, $6.7 billion exported, which is of 20% of total exposure. The sector is likely to see demand decline due to tariffs as well. Government response in this regard is very vital. Prime Minister and the ministers are batting for vocal for local to reduce exports dependency. The multi-ministry plan is being developed to ease short-term pain for exporters as well. The government aims to diversify export destination and better utilize free trade agreements. The RBI in this regard has pledged support to help mitigate the impact as well. So, one of the foremost lessons for India in this regard is to diversify its export destinations. So, we have to explore newer destinations. So, the initiatives, the multilateral initiatives like CPEC, earlier we have withdrawn completely, but so India has to focus on engaging in newer markets, particularly through multilateral, bilateral or plurilateral arrangements as well. So, we need to rethink our strategy in this regard. So, let us take a look at the bilateral trade between India and US at the glance. Total bilateral trade between India and US stood at USD $131.84 billion, making the US India's largest trading partner for the fourth straight year. Exports from India to the US reached $86.51 billion, up 11.6% from the previous year of $77.52 billion. Imports into India from the US totaled around $45.33 billion, a 7.4% rise from $42.2 billion in 23-24. This yielded a trade surplus for India of USD almost $41 billion, increasing from earlier $35 billion. US accounted for 18% of India's total goods export and approximately 6.2% of India's goods import as well. Overall, it represented 10.7% of India's total merchandise trade. So, almost 11% of uh, total merchandise trade is now exposed to the punishing US tariffs. So, you can very interesting practice question here. Just comment your answer in the comment section. Very important analysis from the perspective of again prelims as well as means. Note down some of the important data points in this regard as well. So, another important article is about Samudrayaan. So, essentially the Samudrayaan project aiming to send 3 aquanauts to a depth of 6,000 meters by 2027 using the indigenously developed Matsya 6000 submersible as a part of deep ocean mission. So, Samudrayaan project is again part of larger deep ocean mission which will explore the depths of the ocean through the Matsya submersible which is developed indigenously by India. So, this particular analysis is important from the perspective of again GS3 science and technology part. So, earlier this month 2 Indian aquanauts travelled deep into the Atlantic Ocean aboard French vessel Nautil. This was in preparation for deep sea exploration under the upcoming Samudrayaan project as well, where India plans to send 3 humans to a depth of 6,000 meters by 2027. Cadre retired Jatindra Pal Singh and R. Ramesh travelled to 5,002 meters and 4,025 meters respectively below the sea level through that French naval vessel Nautil recently, just as astronauts Shubhanshu Shukla's learnings from the recent Axiom 4 mission will aid India's Gaganyaan program for human spaceflight. The dives will inform the deep sea project as well. So, important analysis. So, what exactly is the Samudrayaan project? So, the Samudrayaan project is a part of India's deep ocean mission, as I earlier said, which was approved in 2021 with a budgeted outlay of 4,077 crore over 5 years. Its goal is to unlock the potential of India's 11,098 km long coastline and develop blue economy by exploring and harnessing deep sea resources. So, deep ocean mission, the purpose of that particular project is to kickstart the blue economy particularly, essentially so that we can develop the blue economy sector effectively through the exploration. Key objectives of the mission. What are the key objectives of this particular Samudrayaan mission now? Develop deep sea technologies including underwater robotics, mining tech and crude submersible. Climate advisory services using ocean observations and models to project climate variables. Biodiversity conservation is another objective here. Explore and conserve deep sea biodiversity using innovative technologies. Mineral exploration is also another focus. Focus on polymetallic nodules which contain nickel, cobalt and rare earths. Energy and freshwater. Develop tech to derive these from the ocean. Establish a marine station for R&D in Indian Ocean biology and engineering as well. The National Institute of Ocean Technology is leading the development of the submersible under the Samudrayaan project. Once operational, India will join an elite group of nations which includes US, China, Russia, Japan and France with deep sea exploration capabilities. So, India will join the elite company of those countries. So, what is the focus here? Focus is the development of this particular submarine which is named Matsya 6000. 6000 here is denotes the 6,000 meter depth. So, you can see the prototype here, the Matsya 6000 which will dive to the depth of 6,000 meters. So, it is a vehicle that will take the 2 aquanauts into the deep. So, we are calling them aquanauts obviously because they are diving deep into the ocean. Designed somewhat like a big fish, you can see the shape, it is shaped like a big fat fish. It will comprise a personal sphere with a diameter of 2.1 meters to house the humans. The vehicle will be capable of sustaining 3 humans for 12-hour mission. In case of emergency, system aboard can sustain them for up to 96 hours as well. For the initial test, carrying humans to a 500 depth, a steel sphere will be used. A weight test was conducted off the coast of Chennai recently in February in this regard. Steel, however, is not strong enough to bear the atmospheric pressure of 6,000 meters under the sea, which is 600 times that of the surface. The actual personnel spear for Matsya 6000 will be made of a titanium alloy. So, steel is not being used originally here, but the prototype, which will, has gone to the level of 500 meters, only used that steel prototype, but the original submersible Matsya 6000 will use titanium alloy instead, so that it can withstand the tremendous pressure, which is almost 600 times more than the surface of the ocean at the 6,000 meter depth. So, what are the challenges of deep sea exploration, by the way? Vessel development is obviously the challenge. We have seen the development, or the challenge in this regard when it comes to Titan submersible and its explosion in the in recent times. So, vessel development is again a challenge. A submersible's personnel sphere must withstand immense pressure at 6,000 meters depth. A titanium alloy with 80 millimeter thickness is used for its strength and durability. Precision is critical. Even a 0.2 millimeter error in thickness can cause structural failure as well. The sphere will be built using electron beam welding, a high precision technique handled by ISRO. Titanium is scarce and international access to reserves is limited. So, titanium in this regard is obviously a scarce element. So, that presents a challenge as well. Second is life support and internal environment. The sphere must contain enough oxygen level and remove carbon dioxide using scrubbers. Rebreather systems are used in emergencies to recycle exhaled air as well. Systems are similar to those used by deep sea divers. Aquanaut health is also need to be monitored. Aquanauts must be physically fit and mentally prepared for emergencies. Limited food and water intake is advised due to lack of on-board washrooms. Example, a 9-hour dive had an aquanaut survive on dry fruits alone. So, you can see the tremendous depths to which the aquanaut health need to be taken care of. Communication in this manner is also very important. Radio waves do not work underwater, that is true. Acoustic telephones transmit sound waves to communicate with the surface. India developed its own indigenous acoustic system after facing reluctance from other countries to share the take in this regard. While initial harbor tests failed due to temperature and salinity, the system worked successfully in the open ocean. So, we are going to see the inclusion of indigenous acoustic system in this particular mission as well. So, this particular Samudrayaan mission will transform India's blue economy, and it will give India, it will take India to the elite company of very few countries who are able to dive, say, at the depth of 6,000 meters. So, we are going to see by 2027 our 2 aquanauts, achieving this particular feat. So, by the way, the basic of this particular mission you can find in India's Deep Ocean Mission. So, Deep Ocean Mission is a 4,077 crore 5-year initiative launched in 2021 to explore and harness deep sea resources as a part of India's blue economy strategy. What are the key goals, by the way? Deep sea mining and development of technologies like underwater vehicles and Matsya 6000 crude submersible that we have seen under the Samudrayaan project recently. Exploration of deep sea biodiversity and conservation is another key goal. Climate services using deep ocean data and models. Survey of seabed minerals, especially polymetallic nodules, like which are generally rich in rare earths like cobalt and nickel. Development of ocean based energy and freshwater technologies. Establishment of marine station as well. Why it matters? Why we need to develop this submersible and actually invest money in Deep Ocean Mission? Because it taps into the unexplored resources in India's almost 11,000 plus kilometer of coastline, puts India among a select group of countries like US, China, Japan with deep sea exploration capability, boosts scientific research and resource security and technological innovation as well. Obviously, the coordination agency in this regard is also important to know. National Institute of Ocean Technology NIOT sphere development and welding, but it is generally led by ISRO as well. So, by the way, under Samudrayaan project, majorly the NIOT is developing that particular submersible, although ISRO is developing some of the technology in this regard, but major developer of that Matsya 6000 submersible is this NIOT. Remember this particular fact. This is very important practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. So, another important article that we are going to discuss is about Florida's python problem. So, particularly in the state of Florida in United States, this Burmese python have become invasive. So, essentially, what has happened now is the article talks about the control of Burmese python population in Everglades of Florida through use of robot rabbits, so that you can actually get these snakes out of their burrows in the Everglades and you can hunt them. So, the actual python population in Everglades of Florida has exploded after 2004 particularly, and the primary reason behind this particular explosion is a pet trade. But one of the major reason is also being considered is the impact of Hurricane Katrina at that point of time. So, it is assumed that under the mounting impact of that particular tremendous Hurricane Katrina in 2003 to 2004-5, many times these snakes escaped from the facility, the pet facility in particular, and these escaped snakes then populated the parts of Everglades in Florida, devouring the local species in their wake, and now the problem has reached unprecedented proportions. So, that is why many times you will see there are python hunts being organized. Many times there are ecological solutions being suggested for controlling the python population, so that the indigenous population of species in the Florida Everglades flourish. The state of Florida is struggling to control invasive species of Burmese python in Everglades ecosystem. So, struggling to control the population of Burmese pythons, authorities in Florida have turned to robotic rabbits now. The giant snakes are not native to Florida, as I earlier said. They are considered invasive in Florida, and naturally they don't have no natural predators there. For the past 3 decades, they have been feasting on local fauna. Today, they threaten the entire Everglades ecosystem. With the pythons camouflage making them difficult to catch, authorities have been forced to look for creative solutions. So, that is why what can be one creative solutions is the use of robotic rabbits, so that you can actually get them out into the open. They have sanctioned bounty hunts. So, what are some of the innovative solutions adopted by the state of Florida to control the population? Obviously, as I said, there are bounty hunts, held an annual Florida Python Challenge with hefty prizes for those who catch the most pythons, fixed trackers on male snakes so that they can lead the captors to egg-laying females and nests, and even brought in a special snake catchers from Tamil Nadu's Irula tribe as well. So, in recent times, we have seen the development in this regard. The state of Florida in particular have approached Tamil Nadu's snake catching tribe like Irulas. Now, the South Florida Water Management District has adopted robotic rabbits. So, what exactly are these robotic rabbits going to work? So, they are obviously lure, trap and kill. So, means robot rabbits will be used for luring them, and then the authorities will trap and kill the python. To combat the invasive Burmese python problem in Florida's Everglades, authorities are using automatic animatronic rabbit decoys that mimic real marsh rabbits, a favorite prey of the snakes. These robotic rabbits lure, move, emit body heat and smell like real rabbits, are equipped with motors, internal heaters and camera, send alerts when python approaches it, so a removal team can act quickly. Previously, real rabbits were used, but they required intensive care, making the new robotic solution more efficient and sustainable. So essentially, earlier they used to have the real rabbits, but now they have shifted towards use of robotic rabbits. But we are going to see the result of the use of rabbits in the upcoming times. Why particularly Burmese python have become existential threat for Florida's Everglade. Burmese pythons are native to Southeast Asia or South Asia as well, became established in Florida through exotic pet trade in 1990s and 2000s. Many were abandoned or escaped, and Florida's favorable climate, vegetation and lack of predators allowed their population to thrive. Particularly the Everglades has the very tropical sort of atmosphere, and in which they flourished with the abundance of prey base and no availability of predator. These particular snakes multiplied fast. These invasive snakes have caused severe ecological damage in the Everglades, feeding on wide range of animals from rabbits to birds, even alligators. They didn't even uh, spare alligators. According to USGS, python predation has led to dramatic declines in the native mammal populations. For example, you can see raccoons have been down by almost 99% in Florida's Everglades, opossums down by almost 99% again, bobcats down by almost 87%, and marsh rabbits, foxes and cottontails nearly disappeared from Florida's Everglades. So you can see the tremendous impact of the pythons on the indigenous faunal population of Florida's Everglades. That's why invasive species threat is very, very vital. So in India also you have seen many species becoming invasive, whether it is faunal or floral species. So just comment in the comment section what sort of faunal species are there in India that have become invasive, or some of the floral species as well which have become invasive. You may get, or UPSC has already asked the question on invasive species in recent times. I will tell you one of the example is Juliflora species. You have seen that particular tree in your neighborhood. So it has become that uh, invasive. The impact is most severe in southern Everglades, where pythons have been present the longest. So in southern Everglades in particularly, the pythons have the longest presence. So what exactly are these Everglades, by the way? I am using the words Everglades a lot. The Everglades is a natural region of flooded grasslands in the southern portion of the US state of Florida, comprising a southern half of large drainage basin within neotropical realm. It is a World Heritage Site. So Florida's Everglades is a World Heritage Site, a biosphere reserve, a wetland of international significance, and an outstanding Florida water. So it is sort of a backwater for Florida, home of 13 endangered and 10 threatened species, largest mangrove ecosystem in the Western Hemisphere, largest designated wilderness in Eastern US as well. So you can see the tremendous biological value it holds when it comes to Western Hemisphere. So that's why the threat posed by Burmese pythons to the native population here is very, very tremendous. The Burmese python. So let's take a look at some of the characteristics of Burmese python which makes it so lethal. The Burmese python is one of the largest species of snakes in the world. It is native to Southeast Asia, as I earlier said. What is the status? It is vulnerable under IUCN Red List of threatened species. Remember that. Burmese python is listed as vulnerable. Until 2009, it was considered a subspecies of Indian python, but is now recognized as a distinct species. So it is now considered as a distinct species. It is not part of Indian python family. It is invasive species in Florida as a result of the pet trade. Burmese pythons are mainly nocturnal rainforest dwellers. They are also excellent swimmers as well. So just remember some of the behavioral points here as well. UPSC has the habit of asking the animal behavior related questions. In the northern parts of its range, the Burmese python may be brumate for some months during the cold season in a hollow tree, a hole in the river bank, or under the rocks as well. So, knowing the difference between brumation and hibernation here is also very important. Cold-blooded animals generally brumate. So, brumate What exactly is the brumation? It is a dormant state where reptiles slow down their metabolism in response to colder temperatures. So, cold-blooded animals like reptiles, amphibians, uh, uh, which involve snakes, lizards, turtles, frogs, etc., go through brumation. They don't go through hibernation. Remember this particular fact, very important from the perspective of prelims. So, hibernation happens in a warm-blooded animals, mostly mammals like bears, bats and ground squirrels. What is the definition of hibernation? A deep extended sleep-like state where the animal's metabolism, again heart rate and body temperatures drop significantly to conserve energy. So, very similar states, but in the species in which these occur is different. So, remember that in cold-blooded animals, those sort of animals, reptiles and amphibians generally brumate, while warm-blooded animals like mostly mammals goes through hibernation process. So, apart from Burmese python, very important to know is basics about Indian rock python as well. So, there is a species of Indian rock python, you must have seen the rock python as well. The Indian python is a large python species native to tropical and subtropical regions of Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia. Although smaller than its close relative, the Burmese python, it is still among the largest snake in the world. The Indian python is classified as near threatened under the IUCN Red List due to its overexploitation of population. So, it is considered a near threatened species under IUCN, but the populations are declining. We have seen the almost 30% decline in a decade between 2010 and 2020, which is essentially caused by habitat loss or overexploitation and lack of conservation action as well. So, you know, in the wake of say Project Tiger or Project Elephant or the conservation of great Indian bustard, what we are ignoring is these sort of python species as well. So, there is no specific conservation action being taken for Indian rock python preservation, but in the upcoming decades we may need to take an action where, because we have seen in just a decade almost 30% decline in the Indian rock python population. So, although they are close cousins of Burmese python, these are very two different species, remember that. So, this is very important practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. Very important, very interesting analysis as well. The impact of invasive species, the classic example is Florida's Everglades. You can utilize such examples, such case studies effectively in your GS3 environment related answers as well. Although you can directly get the question in prelims from the perspective of mains, threat of invasive species and how we can handle such threat is very important. In decoded section, the analysis that we are going to discuss is about warning from hills. So, in recent times we have seen the unprecedented floods, the unprecedented rains in Jammu region particularly, with 40 plus deaths and counting, and questions over Vaishno Devi Yatra shows the importance of disaster management in rapidly changing climate. So, obviously it is some sort of warning from the hills, I will say. Increasing toll from floods in Jammu and Kashmir should alert authorities to the need for systems that alert people in advance. So, people need to be alerted in advance. So, some sort of very advanced system we have to come up with, so that because what is happening is the impact of climate change on western disturbance and the fragility of Himalayas is the reason behind the increasing flash flood like situation, like Gulf like situations in the Himalayas. Climate change is altering weather patterns across the Indian subcontinent, and one clear indicator is the shifting behavior of western disturbances. Western disturbances essentially low pressure systems that typically affect northern India during winter and spring. Due to climate change, these disturbances are now appearing more frequently during summer and monsoon seasons, contributing to extreme weather events in the Himalayan region. So, generally western disturbances are the phenomena which generally occur in the winter and spring season, but due to the adverse effect of climate change, we are seeing the western disturbances in summer and monsoon seasons as well, and they are actually exacerbating the issue further, and it is leading to the extreme weather events that we are seeing in the Jammu region now. increased summer activity. Western disturbances are once rare during monsoon are now triggering extreme rainfall, flash floods and landslides, especially in Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Northeast as well. In the current monsoon season alone, there have been at least 14 such disturbances. So, you can see the tremendous impact of climate change on the frequency of western disturbances. So, in this regard, note down some of the data points here, and the analysis is very, very important from the perspective of again GS3, environment, disaster management, at the same time GS1, geography related issues, environmental geography in particular as well. So, recent tragedy in Jammu and Kashmir, a flash flood in Jammu killed over 40 people, including many Vaishno Devi pilgrims, following record-breaking 24-hour rainfall, a stark reminder of the growing risk during monsoon pilgrimages and road travel. Himalayan fragility and landslides. As the world's youngest mountain range, Himalayas are geologically unstable. Constant tectonic activity weakens the rock structure, which, when combined with climate-induced extreme rainfall, increases the frequency and severity of landslides. Obviously, that is the result of changing climate. 12% of Jammu and Kashmir's hilly terrain falls under the highly susceptible landslide category according to the Geological Survey of India. So, note down this particular data point here. 12% of Jammu and Kashmir's hilly terrain falls under highly susceptible landslide category. So, when you get the question on landslides, you can definitely utilize such data points. Obviously, you may get question on landslides in the upcoming mains, although 25 mains has already happened, but from the perspective of say 2026, mostly when it comes to the predictions for say geography or disaster management, you can find those in the disasters which have occurred in the previous years. So, that is why whether it is flash flood or whether it is GLOF or whether it is landslides, important to know the basics of it, along with it how to manage them. So, we are going to see what are the urgent need for preparedness in this regard. Authorities must enhance warning systems in vulnerable areas. That is what the article argues. Use landslide susceptible maps in climate adaptation planning. Monitor high risk zones with dense population or traffic, especially pilgrimage routes. Establish a Himalayan States Council to coordinate efforts and standardize building codes based on localized risk and rainfall thresholds. You can utilize this particular solution when it comes to the question on fragility of Himalayan states to the disasters or climate change. So, note down this particular point here. Establish a Himalayan States Council to coordinate efforts and stabilize building codes based on localized risk and rainfall thresholds. So, this is very, very good solution suggested by the article here. Challenges in prediction in this regard are also tremendous. Not all disasters are preceded by warning signs. That is very true. For example, Dharali flash flood recently in Uttarakhand occurred without unusually heavy rain, highlighting the limits of current forecasting systems and the need for continuous scientific research when it comes to the flash floods. So, what exactly are the flash floods? A flash flood is a sudden intense flood that occurs within minutes to a few hours of heavy rainfall because of the dam failure or the sudden release of water, for example, from glacial lakes or landslides for that matter. They develop quickly with little or no warning, often caused by intense localized rainfall, most common in mountainous regions, urban areas or places with poor drainage. So, poor drainage actually exacerbates the effect of flash flood. Water levels can rise rapidly and dramatically, posing high risk for life and property in this regard as well. So, from the perspective of disaster management, this particular angle here is very important. Flash flood management strategies. So, what are some of the flash flood management strategies that India can adopt? Obviously, the first and foremost is about early warning system. Flash flood guidance services launched by IMD and WMO. So, it is not like the IMD hasn't taken any steps. There is flash flood guidance services which provide alerts for over 30,000 watersheds, real-time data on rainfall, soil moisture and runoff. It monitors real-time data. Doppler weather radars for localized rainfall tracking are also there. Structural measures. What structural measures we can take to manage flash floods, by the way? Check dams, embankments, levees and flood walls in vulnerable zones, storm water drains and rainwater harvesting systems in cities, retrofitting of infrastructure in flood-prone urban areas, mapping and zoning is also important. Disaster preparedness and community awareness is another way. NDMA guidelines emphasize community-based disaster management, encourage mock drills, local capacity building and local school safety programs as well. So, the disaster management should be localized. State disaster management authorities coordinate evacuation and relief efforts in this regard. So, disaster preparedness and community awareness is also very vital, along with mapping and zoning of such disasters, which involve GSI, Central Water Commission in this regard. Policy and governance. National Action Plan on Climate Change includes adaptation strategies to handle extreme weather. State action plans on climate change focus on region-specific flash floods and landslide risk reduction. Integration of climate resilience into urban planning, smart cities mission in particular. Special measures for Himalayan flash floods, monitoring glacial lakes via remote sensing, like it is done by ISRO and NRSC as well. Early warning systems for GLOFs, need for Himalayan Council as proposed to coordinate interstate efforts on risk monitoring and adaptation. So, in conclusion, we can say climate change is intensifying western disturbances and rainfall variability. That is very true, leading to a greater frequency of extreme weather events in the fragile Himalayan ecosystem. Without adaptive infrastructure, improved monitoring and coordinated regional planning, such events will continue to claim lives and disrupt ecosystems. Policymakers in this regard must act urgently to build climate resilience in the mountain states, integrating scientific data with community level safety and planning measures. So, important analysis from the perspective of, say, disaster management, GS1 geography as well. So, note down some of the important data points and important strategies being discussed in this particular article. So, this is very important practice question for you. That's it from my side, and stay tuned for another edition of Daily News Analysis. Thank you.